The Honorable Dr. Eric Mutai, how do you plead to the three grounds? How do you plead to ground one? How do you plead to ground two? How do you plead to ground three? Reading of the charges on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Honorable Eric Mutai, Governor of Kericho County. The Honorable Dr. Eric Mutai, Governor Kericho County, please take the stand. Honorable Dr. Eric Mutai, Governor Kericho County, the charges against you as received from the County Assembly of Kericho are as follows, and I quote: Ground one, gross violation of the Constitution and other laws. Gross violation of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya 2010, the County Governments Act 2012, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Kericho County laws. The particulars of this ground are as follows. Allegation 1, misappropriation and misallocation of county finances. On various occasions since his election as a governor and subsequent assumption of office, the governor has engaged in various acts of gross violation of Articles 10, 183 and 201 of the Constitution, Sections 102 and 109 of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 412A, and the provisions of the Kericho County Rating Act, number 5 of 2019, as follows. 1. Fictitious payment of works, goods, and services. Between January 2025 and July 2025, the governor engaged in gross violations of Articles 10, 183, 201, 207, and 208 of the Constitution, and Sections 102, 109, and 110 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Section 3, Subsection 3, Section 30, Subsection 3F of the County Governments Act 2012. The governor aided, abetted, and/or condoned the fictitious payment of goods, services, and works which were neither delivered nor done, occasioning the county loss of Kenya shillings 85,704,522.90 in A, services which were not rendered and/or partially done, for example, the maintenance of 15 residential houses in Kipkelion West Sub-County at a cost of 2.99 million shillings. B, goods not delivered, including soybeans, maize jam, sunflower, seed cake, and cotton seed cake, alleged to have been supplied for Kenya shillings 14,980,640. C, overpriced goods, including sodas, alleged to have been bought for about 500 shillings per 300 milliliter bottle, and a bale of tissue paper, alleged to have been bought for Kenya shillings 2,750 per bale of 10 tissue papers, and a hand towel priced at Kenya shillings 3,600. D, works, goods, and services alleged to have been procured for Kenya shillings 5,172,715.60 from companies including Mengro Products Limited, Hildama Construction and Supplies Limited, Brisac Construction and Supplies Limited, Prospera Ventures Limited, and IBM Pro Construction Limited, without any supporting documents. And E, payment of contractors from the retention account for the works done for more than 5 years ago, some of which companies had already been paid, and therefore misappropriating county funds through double payments. 2. Some of the goods, services, and works were procured without following the procurement processes. No tender opening committees were formed, contrary to Section 78 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015, as read together with Regulation 25 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Regulations 2020. Similarly, there were no professional opinions done to the accounting officers, contrary to Section 84 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. 3. There was deliberate circumvention of competitive tendering of the same goods, services, and works by splitting of contracts to suit the request for quotation method, therefore violating Section 54 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015, as read together with Regulation 43 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Regulations 2020. 4. Most of the goods, services, and works were procured outside the approved budget as required under Section 44, subsection 2A of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. 5. The documents used by the departments were not clear and did not bear references to the procurement requirement, provision of dates, especially invoices generated, and signatures of respective officers. There was therefore blatant violation of the provisions of Regulation 68 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Regulations 2020. 6. No market survey was conducted as required under Regulation 43, Subregulation 4 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Regulations 2020. The contractors therefore supplied goods with exorbitant prices, contrary to Section 54, subsection 2 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. 7. All of the subject goods, services, and works were paid for in advance, yet the county has accumulated pending bills over the last 3 years of Kenya shillings 1.1 billion, which have been verified and are yet to be paid from the time the governor assumed office. 8. The report of the ad hoc committee on the alleged fictitious payments tabled before the Assembly on 5th of August 2024 made pertinent and damning findings and recommendations that point to the deliberate failure to act, neglect of duty, and even conspiracy on the part of the governor, to wit, A. The documents shared with the ad hoc committee by the departmental heads called to testify were not accompanied by the ETIM's invoice. This lends credence to the suspicion that the documents may have been prepared to cover up the theft after the whistle was blown. B. The payments were made in advance before goods, services, and works were delivered or done, and as at the date of the tabling of the report, some of those goods, services, and works remained undelivered to date. C. Documents that were used to process payments bore the signatures that could not be authenticated. Subsequently, certain officers whose signatures appear in the said documents have denounced the documents. D. The gaps highlighted in the report point to serious governance concerns and weak internal controls in Kericho County that the appointing authority, that is the governor, policy makers, accounting officers, and indeed all the officers entrusted to deliver services to the county have failed to do as required by law. E. There was an intention to defraud the county and violations of the Constitution 2010, the Public Finance Management Act 2012, the County Governments Act 2012, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Powers and Privileges County Assemblies Act, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. 9. Under Article 179 of the Constitution and Section 30, subsection 3F of the County Government Act 2012, the governor has the overall responsibility of being accountable for the management and use of county resources. 10. It is a matter of public notoriety that when the whistle was blown on these fictitious payments, the governor, on 26 July 2025, while attending a function at Kamolok village in Cheboin ward, rubbished the claims and called for stern action against the whistleblower. This shows someone who is either unaware of the happenings in the county or was deeply involved in the scandal. 2. Misappropriation of National Agricultural Value Chain Development Project, NAVCPD funds. 11. On various dates between the year 2023 and 2025, the governor has violated the provisions of Articles 10, 183, 201, 207, and 208 of the Constitution, and Sections 48 and 159 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Section 30, subsection 3F of the County Government Act 2012, by aiding, abating, condoning, and/or overseeing the massive looting, pilferage, misappropriation, and misallocation of NAVCDP funds amounting to over Kenya shillings 351 million as at 10th June 2025. 12. From the report of the Committee of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries and Cooperative Management, Tourism and Wildlife on the implementation status of National Agriculture Value Chain Development Project, NAVCDP, in Kericho County, tabled in the County Assembly on 6th of August 2025, the County Assembly noted the following discrepancies in the use of the fund. A. The expenditure was used for farmers' cooperative societies, found only in 19 of 30 wards in Kericho County. This implies that the funds that were meant for agripreneurs, whose role was to enumerate farmers and organize them into SACCOs, was not adequately utilized. B. Each ward SACCO was meant to get Kenya shillings 1 million, yet the committee found that out of the 19 SACCOs under the program, only 7 have ever received financial support since the inception of the fund. C. It is further indicated in the report that some SACCO received nominal support in kind in form of office furniture and some farm inputs, while others have never received any support. D. Even those SACCOs and farmer producer organizations which received support in kind did not receive delivery notes when the furniture, computers, and other supplies were delivered, and they cannot therefore ascertain the prices, source, and therefore quality of what was supplied. E. The procurement of furniture and equipment under the NAVCDP program was conducted centrally with minimal involvement of key stakeholders. This does not only undermine the principle of transparency in procurement, decision-making, and lack of ownership, but also created room for pilferage and misappropriation of the fund. 13. The office furniture and equipment supplied under the NAVCDP program are largely of substandard quality. There was therefore no value for money and compliance with the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015, particularly Section 124, which obligates the procuring entity to select quality and cost-based selection, QCBS method, as the preferred method to be used to evaluate proposals. 14. The manner in which the few projects which were implemented was done shows that they were done without following the project implementation manual published by the World Bank to guide the implementation of the projects. 15. Again, the governor shirked his overall responsibility under Article 179(4) of the Constitution and Section 30, subsection 3F of the County Governments Act 2012 to be accountable for the management and use of county resources. 16. There is evidence that the governor has been ordering withdrawals from the fund for reasons other than those for which the fund was created by the donor. Evidence of this shall be availed at the hearing and consideration of this motion. The mover will as well be asking the Assembly to issue an order under Article 195, Subarticle 2B of the Constitution, and Section 27, Subsection 1C, and Subsection 2 of the County Assembly's Powers and Privileges Act 2017, compelling the relevant banks where the funds were drawn from to furnish this House with the bank statements showing the withdrawals of the funds from 2023 to date. 3. Misappropriation of funds and unfair distribution of projects under the Financing Locally Led Climate Action, FLOCA Fund. 17. On various dates between the year 2023 and 2025, the Governor has violated the provisions of Articles 10, 179, 183, 201, 207, and 208 of the Constitution, and Sections 102 and 107 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Section 30, Subsection 3F of the County Governments Act 2012, by presiding over unfair, skewed, and nepotic distribution of projects under FLOCA funds, imprudent use, misappropriation, and misallocation of FLOCA funds as follows. A. Skewed and unfair distribution of projects under the fund with the Governor's home ward, namely Chemosot ward, alone, getting projects worth Kenya shillings 21,701,590, while there are many other wards, not only in other sub-counties, but even in the Bureti sub-county, which have received not a single project under the fund. This nepotically skewed distribution of projects under the fund violates the national values and principles of governance under Article 10 of the Constitution, and in particular, the values of equity, non-discrimination, equality, good governance, integrity, transparency, and accountability, the principles of public finance under Chapter 12 of the Constitution, as well as the provisions of Sections 102 and 107 of the Public Finance Management Act, which enjoins the Governor to ensure fiscal responsibility and adherence to the values and principles of the Constitution in the management of the county funds. B. The Joint Committee on Water and Sanitation and Environment, Energy, Forestry, and Natural Resources, in their report on the implementation status of FLOCA programs, noted that some projects under the fund, namely Chemomul Water Project in Kabianga, water and environment projects in Seretut, Cheptororiet Ward, Torachtani Cooperative Society Milk Cooling Plant in Kapsaos Ward, Soliat Water Tree Nursery Establishment Project in Soliat Ward, Arndonyo Mare Borehole Water Project, and Lelaitich Water Project in Soliat Ward are marked as 100% complete, yet there are either defects in the works, incomplete, and substandard works. 18. As a result of this unfair distribution of projects, wards like Cheplanget, Litany, Chaik, Kipchebor, Chilchila, and Kunyak did not get even a single project in all the categories under the fund, namely environment, agriculture, and water. 4. Misappropriation of county funds and Equalizer Kazi Mtaani initiative. 19. On or about 31st of August 2023, the Governor engaged in gross violation of Articles 10, 183, 201, 207, and 208 of the Constitution, and Sections 102, 109, and 110 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 by launching a program dubbed Equalizer Kazi Mtaani Initiative and drawing county funds towards the initiative without a legislation to anchor the initiative, public participation, prior approval of the County Assembly and the Controller of Budget, and prior approval of the Budget and Appropriation Committee's approval. 20. Under the fund, a total of Kenya shillings 39 million were paid without proper tendering, local service orders, and for the services which were not delivered. 20, the County Assembly's report on the ad hoc Committee on Kazi Mtaani project pointed out various violations of the Constitution and the law in the rolling out and implementation of the initiative. However, the Governor deliberately disregarded the report and it has hitherto not been implemented. 22, the deliberate failure, omission, and unwillingness to implement the report of the County Assembly on Equalizer Kazi Mtaani initiative undermines devolution, the doctrine of separation of powers, and is therefore antithetical to the values and principles of governance under Article 10 of the Constitution, the objects of devolution, and under Article 174 of the Constitution. 5, misappropriation of funds under the Strategic Intervention Projects, SIPs. 23, in various dates during the financial year 24-25, the Governor engaged in gross violation of Articles 10, 183, 201, 207, and 208 of the Constitution, and Sections 102, 109, and 110 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 by overseeing misappropriation of various projects under the Strategic Intervention Projects CIP Fund. 24, for instance, the project for upgrading of Kunyak Dispensary to Health Center, which is a retender project for the construction and renovation of various facilities within the health center by Messrs. Belitra Enterprises Limited for Kenya shillings 44,756,846, a total of Kenya shillings 8,575,186 has been paid for no works done. Indeed, when the County Assembly's Committee on Implementation visited the site, they found that the contractor had only supplied materials, contrary to the Finance Department's report to the Assembly that kitchen and staff house was at walling stage, while the MCH is at slab level. 6, other violations of the Constitution and the law. 25, the present and former Chief Executive Committee members and chief officers have variously reported coercion by the Governor to make financial allocations for the Governor's own use from the funds allocated to their respective departments, and which funds they were required to remit through the Governor's personal assistants. 26, violation of Article 201A, D, and E of the Constitution 2010 on principles of public finance, and Article 226 as read with Article 227 of the Constitution by presiding over glaring irregularities evidenced by A, irregular award of contracts and evasion of accountability, B, willfully interfering in the procurement processes and the award of tenders, C, skewed tender awards to various contractors at inflated rates and in collusion with fraudulent contractors and suppliers, D, irregular implementation and unfair distribution of various programs in the county, E, intentionally and negligently presiding over massive theft of county public funds as evidenced by the Auditor General's reports for the preceding financial years, which have raised red flags over various projects. 27, on 15th August 2023, the Governor compensated the victims of Londiani accident from the County Emergency Fund to cover up for the funds raised by the public and misappropriated by a committee he had formed to steer the funds drive, and without a cogent explanation of how the funds publicly raised for the victims had been expended. Allegation number 2, misappropriating and or abetting misappropriation of the funds publicly raised for the victims of Londiani accident. 1, on various dates between 4th July 2023 and 9th July 2023, the Governor grossly violated the provisions of Article 10, 73, and 75 of the Constitution and Sections 29 and 34 of the Leadership and Integrity Act 2012 by A. Overseeing misappropriation of the funds raised for the victims of the horrendous Londiani Junction accident tragedy, in which over Kenya shillings 9 million of public raised funds were lost. B. Reneging on his undertaking to implement the report of the County Assembly's ad hoc committee formed to probe the misappropriation of funds meant for the victims of the accident. There is evidence that the governor filed a suit and/or supported a suit by those implicated in the report of the County Assembly's ad hoc committee in Kericho Employment and Labor Relations Court petition number E006 of 2023, Dr. Wesley Bor and 5 others versus the governor, Kericho County Government and others, and Kericho ELRC petition number E014 of 2023, Victor Tum and others versus the governor, Kericho County and others. C. Being personally and directly complicit in the flawed award of direct tenders for service providers during the fundraiser and requiem mass of the victims of the accident. D. The county governor has in this regard committed numerous and various acts in the course of his duties that are contrary to and in violation of the Constitution and the laws of Kenya. These include: 1. The authenticity of various payments made cannot be confirmed. The fact that the exact amount of money expended from the sum collected during the fundraiser points to impropriety and suggests a clear fraud on those whom the funds ought to have benefited. 2. A total of Kenya shillings 13,682,660 was collected at the fundraiser. A sum of Kenya shillings 423,000 was purportedly expended as pastor's facilitation, transport refund, field preparation, lunches and refreshments, printing, publishing, and radio announcements. Other payments that were approved from the fund were Kericho County Referral Hospital, Kenya shillings 2,037,524, Londiani Hospital, Kenya shillings 1,534,190, Supertix Limited, Kenya shillings 2,945,000, Supershine Limited, Kenya shillings 411,000, Raise Hotel, Kenya shillings 100,000, County Commissioner's Fuel, Kenya shillings 300,000. 3. That when Kenyans from all walks of life voluntarily made contributions to aid the victims of the tragedy, it was never intended or anticipated that the funds would be misappropriated with the blessings of the governor, who had a higher calling to ensure the money is accounted for to the last coin and on whom the people bestowed their trust. 4. The governor issued contradictory statements insofar as the use of the funds is concerned. The contradictory statements point to his being complicit in the matter. 5. While the governor is on record indicating that the medical bills for all the victims would be waived and taken care of by the county government, it is clear why money had to be paid out from the fund collected to various public hospitals against the express and unequivocal representations of the governor. E. By his acts of omission and commission, the governor has grossly violated the provisions of Article 75 of the Constitution, which demands that a state officer shall, whether in private or in public, behave in a manner that avoids conflict of interest between personal interests and public or official interests, or compromises public interest in favor of personal interest. F. By overseeing the misappropriation of the funds aimed at assisting the victims of the accident, the governor violated Article 73 sub-article 2, which demands from him selfless service based solely on public interest, demonstrated by honesty in the execution of his duties, accountability to the public for decisions and actions, and discipline and commitment in service. G, by allowing himself to be a master of doublespeak in such a grave matter that shook the conscience of the nation, the governor violated Article 73, Subarticle A, Roman 2 and 3 of the Constitution, which demand that he at all times demonstrates respect to the people and brings honor and dignity to the office he holds. H, by allowing himself and senior officials close to him to benefit from the funds, the governor violated Article 76, Subarticle 2B of the Constitution, which prohibits a state officer from accepting a benefit in circumstances that compromise the integrity of the state officer. I, by failing to ensure that decision-making in the executive of the county governor are not influenced by corruption, nepotism, and other callous and improper motives, the governor has failed to exercise objectivity and impartiality, thus violating Article 73, Subarticle 2B of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Ground 2, abuse of office. The particulars of this ground are as follows. Allegation 1, illegal appointments, unlawful dismissals and transfers, and usurpation of the constitutional and statutory functions of county public service. The governor has variously engaged in 1, gross misconduct, and 2, gross violations of Articles 10, 73, 75, 232, 235, and 236 of the Constitution. 3, gross violations of Section 17 of the Public Officer Ethics Act, Sections 55, 59, 59A, 60, 62, 63, 64, and 65 of the County Governments Act, Section 4 of the Public Appointments County Assemblies Approval Act 2017, and variously abused his office by A, skewed, uncompetitive, and nepotic appointments of the county employees of various cadres. For instance, the governor recently hired his own brother, one Victor Mutai, as a revenue clerk. Similarly, the governor's personal assistant's wife, one Chepkirui Mercy, was recently hired as a nurse on contract basis. Who was recently hired as a nurse on contract basis was confirmed, yet there are a number of nursing staff who have been serving on contract for long without confirmation. B, illegally appointing one Mrs. Alice Bett, now Judge of the High Court, as the county attorney when there was a substantive office holder, an act which the Employment and Labor Relations Court, the Honorable Lady Justice Wasilwa, affirmed was irregular, unprocedural, and unlawful in the case of Sang versus Governor Kericho County and 2 others, petition E001 of 2023. In that case, the governor was found by the court to be in gross violation of Article 73 and 232 of the Constitution, his actions found to be illegal and unconstitutional, and ordered to pay costs of Kenya shillings 2 million and costs personally. The governor has therefore been already adjudged to be in gross violation of the law and all the Assembly and the Senate. C, causing the advertisement of the positions of doctors, nurses, early childhood education, ECDE teachers, just to endear himself politically when he knew the county government did not have capacity to hire. The applicants were subsequently not shortlisted, nor the alleged vacancies filled up. D, illegally deploying health staff via the notice dated 22nd of July 2024 without any justification, authority, and involvement of County Service Board, thus creating a crisis in the health sector. E, since his assumption of office, the governor has dismissed a total of 10 County Executive Committee CEC members, 6 chief officers, 2 chiefs of staff, among other senior staff, without any cause or reason, thus exposing the county to protracted litigation and the risk of huge compensation in damages. The governor has perpetuated this firing spree, not for any reason, but as a show of might, power, and authority, and that is where the abuse lies. Allegation 2, subversion, discrediting, and impeding of the oversight role of the County Assembly. On 3rd September 2024, the Governor engaged in 1, gross misconduct, and 2, grossly violated the provisions of Articles 10, 73, 75, 174, and 185(3) of the Constitution, and abused his office by writing to the Speaker, purporting to direct the Speaker on, among other things, the timelines the Speaker should give the chief officers who are summoned by the Assembly for questioning in exercise of the Assembly's oversight mandate. Ground 3, gross misconduct. The particulars of this ground are as follows. Allegation 1, bullying, incitement, vilification of people and county staff. On various occasions, the Governor has repeatedly engaged in 1, gross misconduct, and 2, gross violation of the provisions of Articles 10, 73, and 75 of the Constitution, and Sections 29 and 34 of the Leadership and Integrity Act by A, the Governor has been operating with impunity as though he is above the law. On the second day of being sworn into office, the Governor led a mob to invade a private land owned by one Mr. Josiah Kiplangat Kogo within Kericho town and tore down the fence. The Governor has since designated the subject land as an illegal dump site operated by the county government without the consent of the registered proprietor, the National Environment Management Authority NEMA approval, gazettement by the county designating the parcel as a dump site, and in total disregard of a court order issued by the Environment and Land Court in the case of Kericho, in Kericho in ELC petition number E001 of 2022, Josiah Kiplangat Kogo versus County Government of Kericho. The Governor has also obstructed the enforcement of the orders by the police administration. The actions are illegal, contemptuous to the authority and dignity of the court and the rule of law, unethical, and demeaning the office the Governor holds. Further, as a result of the illegal actions of the Governor, the county was condemned to pay the costs. B, none of the dismissed CECs, CEOs, and chiefs of staff and other senior county staff were given fair administrative, due process, and hearing, thus violating the provisions of Articles 41, 47, and 51 of the Constitution. C, the Governor has persistently intimidated, molested, harassed county officers who do not sing to his tune, leaving officers jittery and creating an atmosphere of fear, uncertainty, and despondency in the county, and thus creating a toxic work environment. This violates the provisions of Sections 11 and 13 of the Leadership and Integrity Act 2012. D, the Governor has persistently used divisive and unbecoming language which undermines the office he holds, contrary to Section 8 of the Leadership and Integrity Act 2012. And E, the acts of the Governor enumerated above have collectively brought dishonor and disrepute into the office of the Governor in violation of Chapter 6 of the Constitution and the Leadership and Integrity Act 2012.